Welcome to PreciousMetalsInvesting.com. My name is Ted Sudol, and I have the pleasure of having as my guest today Charlie Nedoss. Charlie is the Senior Market Strategist for LaSalle Futures Group. Welcome, Charlie.
Hi, nice to be with you, Ted. Been a lot of activity in the marketplace. Let's put it that way today.
There's been a lot of activity, and some of it has been a continuation of what we've been speaking about the last couple of sessions. Get prepared for inflation.
Yep. It has been. I mean, there's been the inflation talk. Specifically for gold, you really haven't seen gold respond to that. And as a matter of fact, we've really seen a rally in the dollar, over the past couple of weeks here, which I think is long in the tooth. And I think that for the dollar to continue to go further, it's going to be tough. We're coming up to some of the major moving averages, and I think that the dollar has gotten a little ahead of itself.
There's a lot of fear and uncertainty in the market that the stimulus might be too big and the economy was on the verge of coming back. However, that was something that you might have been able to plan on, but then when you see some of the governors eliminating the health measures that have been basically holding down this pandemic, you don't know what's going to happen next.
I do. I mean, I looked at it, people put a lot. Well, if you take a look at interest rates, take a look at the 10-year, that's really where the focus has been. And we got out to about, people thought we'd go to about a 140 yield. We've gone to about a 160 yield. We're sitting up there at about 1.59. Last I looked about an hour ago. So again, I think that you've seen a lot of talk of inflation, people looking at people coming back to work as the economy starts to open up. But I looked at the unemployment report the employment report from Friday. We're still at 6.2% unemployment, and if you look at the U6 number, we're still at 11.1% unemployment. So we did see a lot of hospitality jobs come back. These tend to be, lower paying jobs from what we've seen come back to the job sector. So I think that the cries for inflation, to me, are a little early. Now, are we seeing inflation show up? Yes, you are. You are seeing inflation in food. We've seen it in food and we've seen it in energy, but I don't think that's a new story. So if I take a look, though, specifically at gold now, seeing as that's the commodity that we're here to talk about, gold has been under some pressure for quite some time. If I look on a weekly chart here, if I look on a daily chart, we had talked about some of the moving averages that I think on the last time that we met, we were looking for a test of 1700. And we did come down and test 1700. Today is an interesting day in the sense that we took out Friday's high, we took out Friday's low, and we have a new low for the move here. In terms of the daily charts, you really don't have a point of reference because we've just been trending lower here now. So I went back and I've been looking at the weekly charts, and I did see something that was quite interesting there that leads me to believe that we're getting closer to a bottom for this move. If you take a look at the weekly charts, there is a gap on the weeklies that we started to get into today. Charts do tend to fill gaps. Coming into today's session, there was in the April gold, if you look on the weekly charts, there was a gap from 1679.60 going all the way down to 1647.60.
Yes.
Today's low, which got us into that gap, today's low in the April gold is 1673. So we're starting to etch into that gap, and I think, 1650, 1647 is the bottom of the gap. I'm looking for support to come into gold about right now. The April's trading at like 1678, so about $28 cheaper. I'm looking for some support to come into gold, and I think we could see that this week.
I think that's probably correct. One of the other trends that I've noticed on the reading the different people that comment on the financial markets is there seems to be an increased stridency. It's brushing off from the political rhetoric or what. But I just read an article about from David Ramsey. He's sort of like a middle of the road financial advisor. He was practically spitting, fire and brimstone, saying that he never invests in the precious metals unless he wants to lose money. He said, you'll be lucky if you can trade your gold for a gallon of gas or a gallon of milk. And, there's other commentators that say, well, gold's going to be 15,000.
Right.
I don't know. There's just a lot of people posturing right now.
Well, I guess on the barter for the milk for the gold, I guess either gold's going to get really cheap or milk is going to get really expensive. And I'd have to say right now the milk side of the trade's winning.
Right. I think you're right.
So to me, I mean, I think if I look at it, 7 out of the past 9 weeks we've been down in gold. So I take a look at the weekly charts, and boy, gold's getting both on the RSI and on the stochastic is getting pretty oversold here. So I wouldn't, be surprised if we see some type of a washout. We're down about $20 on the day here, but again, I'm looking for that weekly chart to fill that gap and to hold. One of the drivers that we've been following, well, anybody that follows gold is going to be following the dollar. And if you take a look, I mean, in the past 10 sessions, we've gone from really trading at a sub $90. We didn't close down there, but we did test it several times. And we're trading, at about 92, we traded 92.44 today. So, again, I look at the rate of change of the dollar over the past 3 trading sessions and the rate of change of where the 10-year has been pretty precipitous over the past few sessions here. And I think markets tend to retrace once they go parabolic. So, again, I think you've stretched the dollar pretty far. A lot of people have been running with the inflation story. It'll be interesting to see because we have on the lineup this week here both CPI on Wednesday, and then we have PPI on Friday. And, let's see where those numbers lie. But I think those are going to be 2 of the big inputs that we see this week that I feel the data in these numbers is going to start to constrain the dollar, and I think you start to see some dollar retracement and a little bit of support under gold later in the week.
I think that's a great analysis of what's going on. What are you recommending to your clients, and what are they asking you?
They're asking me when I was looking at 1,700. Let's see what it does down at 1,700. To me, gold's not acting very well here. I'm going to be patient. If I were to see, gold start to, the dollar start to abate here and us not fill the gap, but us start to get some support under 1,700, that's when I would start to look at establishing some new long positions. At this point, I'm going to be patient. I think we come down and fill that gap, and I very well could be pricing call spreads later in this week, depending on the price action.
Well, thank you very much for being with us today at preciousmetalsinvesting.com. I'd urge all of the listeners here to visit the Precious Metals Investing podcast. It's available on iTunes for Apple users. It's available for Google users on Android devices, and it is now Alexa skill. Charlie, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, about LaSalle Futures Group, and what you view as your strengths?
I've been in the futures markets for since the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. I've worked in many capacities, both on the trading floor and off the trading floor. I focus a lot of my efforts on the metals markets as well as agricultural markets in the futures, also equity indices. I only do futures. I am not a licensed stockbroker. In terms of the firm I work with, it's LaSalle Futures Group. We are located in the Chicago Board of Trade. In terms of myself, I do a lot of fundamental and technical analysis on, again, the grain markets and the metals markets. In terms of trading, though, I do follow technicals. I think that technicals are the roadmap to get you where you want to go trading. They aid in finding trade opportunities as well as managing risk. In terms of working with speculative investors, generally, not generally, I would say probably about 90% of the clients that I do purely speculative trading with, I do use options and limited risk option trading strategies. If there's anyone out there that's looking in terms of trading and is looking at carving out a strategy in options, this is what I do, and I would be glad to assist you in developing any of the trading strategies that you might be looking for help in terms of managing risk.
And what would be the best way for persons that want to do work with you to get started?
You can reach me at 312-818-1895.
And although this podcast was focused on the precious metals, we have touched on grains in the past. Grains have been doing very well, and some other commodities like oil have been doing well. So thank you very much for being with us today at preciousmetals.investing.com.
Thank you. Thank you. I always am glad to be here, and I think that your podcast, Ted, is a good place to exchange ideas on the metals markets, specifically gold.
Thank you.